Deus omnipotens.
Dear friends, welcome to Swetnam chapter 26. Now, for a long time, from the beginning of our Greek course, Biblical Greek, we have been studying the active voices. And some of you must have thought, why this every time we need to write active, active, active? Because there are three separate voices in Biblical Greek. In English, we may have heard about active and passive. Biblical Greek or in Greek, there are active, passive, and middle. With chapter 25, as I told you before, we come to the end of the study of active voices. With chapter 26, there's a new beginning. Something possibly very exciting, I suppose. Uh, so we study the middle voices from chapter 26. So in this chapter 26, we'll look into the meaning of the middle voice. Then we'll look at the present middle indicative of Luo and the noun Marcus. The meaning of the middle voice. Now, Greek grammar, as I told you, has three voices: active, middle, passive. Active voice indicates that the grammatical subject of a sentence is the real agent of action. Subject does the action, object receives the action. Passive indicates that the grammatical subject of the sentence is in some way or the other is the recipient of the action. Now, in Greek, there are separate set of forms to express the active voice, and the passive voice will be presented in the future. We already studied the active voice, chapter 9 to 25. Passive will be from 36 to 42. So now from 26 to 35 will be the middle voice. There is a separate set of forms to express middle voice when we compare it with the active. But most of the forms we find in middle voice will also be found in the passive voice. So if you study the middle voice clearly, especially the forms, it will help us very much when we go into the passive voice. The middle voice indicates that the verb has some special relationship to the subject, beyond the relationship of an active verb to its subject. Now, what is the relationship of the active verb to the subject? Subject does the action, object receives the action. What happens in the middle voice? Middle voice in simple terms. Now, how can we understand middle voice in simple words? I want that you get this understanding of the middle voice. What does it really mean in a clear way here in this chapter? Now, this will be a help for us as we go ahead. Now, I said active voice, subject does the action, object receives the action. Passive, subject receives the action from an outside agent. What happens in the middle voice? Now, the subject performs the action, but the subject is also in some way involved in or benefits from the action, or it is affected by the result of the action. Subject does the action, at the same time, subject receives the benefit of that action, or it some way is involved in the result of that action. That means it turns the action back towards the subject in some way. It's too complicated. But let's simplify still. Have you heard of the reflexive understanding? Now, what does actually middle voice in the simple way? It presents an action, present a nuance that is reflexive. For example, there is a verb in Greek called nipto. We'll come across this later. Nipto. Nipto means I wash. If I say the active voice, niptei, it means he washes. Now, let us say, I change that niptei third person singular present active into third person singular middle. Instead of active, middle. What does that mean? Niptetai, maisaitai metastentai, niptetai. That's the middle voice of nipto, third person singular. In the active, nipte means he washes somebody. But if I say niptetai, middle voice, it means he washes himself. Action is happening on self, reflexive. So that is the main idea of middle voice. So there is a reflexive aspect. The subject acts on itself. Second, now all the other things I say more or less they connect to the first understanding, reflexive understanding. Middle voice gives that reflexive aspect. Subject does the action, subject also in a certain way benefits from the action or receives the action. Second, I can say self-interest or benefit. The subject acts for its own advantage. For example, haireiomai. There's a word called haireiomai. It means I choose. But in the middle, haireiomai actually means I choose for myself. Myself. Third, I can also say it speaks about certain kind of indirect involvement. The subject arranges for something to be done or is intimately involved in the outcome. Once again, it's more of an understanding of reflexive. So if you can put it in your mind with the middle voice and reflexive action or action, subject does the action, but it is also benefited or it also receives the action to in certain way. If you can put that much in your mind, it's fine for us to start with. Middle voice gives an idea where subject, although it does the action, it is a reflexive action. The action subject benefits from the action. Let us continue. Remember the formula once again. My sai tai metastentai. My sai tai metastentai. These are your endings for the middle and also for the passive later. Now, how do we form? Sorry. How do we form the present middle indicative? Now, lu is the stem. You will find two vowels coming in here, just as in the present active. Luomai, my sai tai. Luomai, luye. Now I said my sai. Now where is this luye coming in? Where is luye coming in from? Now, what when we say luye, what is actually hidden behind that? It is lu epsilon, that is the helping verb sai, luye sai. But that sa goes silent. That means luye I, luye I. We have seen in the augment or the contraction, ye a becomes long a and e. Now ae, that e iota later on was brought under as a iota subscript. So when you say luye with a iota subscript, it has a big history how it has evolved in the history of Greek grammar. So remember when you say luye, actually there is a luye sai within that, but that is hidden. Contrast the following examples. Ho Christos niptei, I already spoke about it. Tus podas ton apostolon. Christ, the subject, Ho Christos, niptei, present indicative active third person singular. He washes tus podas, that is the accusative plural, the feet, ton apostolon, feet of the disciples. Christ washes the feet of the apostles. Let us go to the middle and see. Ho aner, the man, niptetai, the man washes. But in understanding, we need to understand the man washes himself. The man washes himself. In the second example, the verb niptyata is in the middle voice. It has no expressed object. The object is being supplied by the middle voice itself. Interesting, isn't it? The middle voice, the verb itself supplies the object. But every time I have a middle voice, can I say that verb itself supplies the object? No, I can't say that. It is possible. There are enough examples in the New Testament where the verb in the middle voice has a direct object in the accusative. For example, ho aner niptetai to prosopon autu. The man washes his face. So whenever there is a direct object available, translate it as it is. The man washes then take the direct object as given in the translation. Let us go to the noun martus. It is easy, not very difficult, but an important noun. Martus, martus, marturos, marturi, martura. Plural, martures, martures, marturon, martusi, marturas. Now, can you repeat after me? Martus, martus, marturos, marturi, martura. Martus, martus, marturos, marturi, martura. Martures, martures, marturon, martusi, marturas. If you need, pause here, repeat it a few more times so that it really sticks into your mind. And the root of this noun is martur. Martur. Let us go into the vocabulary of chapter 26. I already given you a vocabulary video. Nevertheless, I will add it here again. Exo goes with the genitive case, which means out or outside of. It also, exo can also be used as an adverb, which means outside. Martus, marturos, we saw it just now. Masculine, it means witness, it means martyr. The second meaning, martyr, is also important. Parabole, we have seen parable. So parabole, parable, the second meaning is symbol. So remember the second meaning also. Soteria, once again, very important. Salvation or liberation. You may have heard phobia. Phobos comes from there. It comes from phobos. Phobia comes from phobos. So phobos means fear. Fulake, guard or prison. Guard here meaning that person who guards, no? That personal guard or prison. Takos, adjective, evil or bad. But you can also use it as a neutral noun. Neuter noun, it means injury. Remember this, neuter noun, kakos means injury. Mikros, you have heard many times microscopic observation or something like that. It comes from mikros, small. As an adverb, mikron, a little while. Here we have a temporal kind of a meaning. Posos, as much as many as. Tuflos means blind. A very important word, very important adjective, blind, remember it, tuflos. Continue. Apeko is a compound verb, apo plus seko. The active transitive meaning is I receive. Active intransitive meaning is I am distant. And the middle voice, I abstain from, I avoid. It goes with the genitive. Remember middle, I abstain from, I avoid. Now I said active transitive, active intransitive. It might sound a little big, or some of you might ask, what is this active and intransitive? What is this in a simple way? Now, generally, when we think about a sentence, there is a subject, there is a verb, there is an object. For example, didaskei ton logon. He teaches the word. Teaches needs something as an object to complete the meaning of that sentence. He teaches something. Or agapa ton theon. He loves God. So, when I say transitive, verb has an object. What about intransitive? Take the verb erketai. He comes. He goes. He does not actually need an object. When I say he comes or he goes, the meaning is already complete, even without giving the direct object at all. So, if a verb needs a direct object, or if a verb needs better, if a verb needs object, then it is a transitive verb. If a verb is complete in meaning its meaning, even without the object, then it is intransitive. Erketa is one of them. Pipto is the verb I fall. Pipto, pipte, he falls. Now, he falls or I fall in itself has a complete meaning. He falls. Even without giving what to say, the direct or indirect object. So, the simple idea, if a verb needs an object, it is transitive. If a verb does not take an object, even without taking the object, if it is meaning is complete, then it is intransitive. Now, some verbs can have both. They can be transitive and intransitive. For example, the verb that we see here, apeko, It can be transitive and it can also be intransitive. Yeah, I think that is that basic idea. If you have at this point, that should be fine. Up. Transitive, when I say verb takes an object. Intransitive, verb does not need an object. Verb itself can stand independently and give the complete meaning. Arco, active, I rule. Middle, I begin. Baptizo, I baptize, I wash. Lesson 11, we have seen it. Middle, see, middle, I told you, is a reflexive kind of action, reflexive action. So, which means I wash myself. Baptizo, in the middle, when it comes baptizomai, I wash myself. Nipto, we spoke about it. I wash myself. Pareko, this is another compound verb that you need to remember. Active, I bring about a change. I cause a revolution. Pareko. Middle, I offer something from my own means. I offer. Remember, both the meanings, both are important. Rantizo, in chapter 23, we saw the active meaning of rantizo. That means I sprinkle. Middle, I wash, but understanding I wash myself. We saw baptizo, there's an understanding of wash. We are seeing now rantizo, we saw nipto. All of them have that wash kind of a meaning. Pulazzo, we have already seen in chapter 17. Middle, I avoid, I observe. Observe means I keep the law or I observe the law. And finally, in the vocabulary, ekei and hode. Ekei, there, hode, here. Ekei, there, hode, here. I suggest go back to this video at least 2 or 3 times. If not on the same day, in the coming days, but to get a clear idea what does middle voice mean and how it is formed. That's the basic thing you need to know. Remember the formula, my, sai, thai. Remember what does transitive, intransitive mean. And remember about martus, marturos, and the vocabulary. Thank you. Wish you all the best for the study of middle voices.
Dona pace